This is Kimberly Reuter, business advisor and supply chain expert, and welcome back to my podcast, The Morning Mood. Good morning, my moodies. Good afternoon, good evening. I know you're worldwide now, so I don't know what time you're listening to me, but you're still my moody, no matter where you are. Well, I got some news, y'all. You're not going to believe this, but I'm back in the oyster game. I know. For those of you who don't know about my oyster game, let me tell you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about oysters and how I got into the oyster business and the future and some very exciting things that I'm going to be bringing to y'all. So, I don't think I've really ever talked about this. So, I grew up where I grew up in the marshes of the Chesapeake Bay, called Tidewater, Virginia. I guess is kind of what it's considered. But I grew up in the marshes of the Chesapeake Bay on the Severn River, in a community, in a waterman community, next door to a gentleman by the name of George Marshall, who at the time owned Marshall Seafood, which was a big multi-million dollar seafood business. Um, he since let that go, uh, but I was entrenched in this seafood business from a child. It was all around me, the watermen around me, the whole community was around me. They're a very distinct community, the waterman community. They were akin to the ranchers, is how I would, for people out in not associated with the East Coast and the water, they're akin to ranchers. They're kind of lonely people, loners, rough, gruff, sort of men and women. But that was my community, and they were there for me when I was a kid, and I always felt very close to that community. I moved around, as everybody knows. I went off to be a big corporate person. Oh, and by the way, the other thing that's super interesting is the first job offer I got after I graduated college was shucking oysters for George. I did not take that job. Looking back, I regret that now. But at the time, certainly my family was not super excited about me to go off to pay for college education for me to come home and shuck oysters. But funny how I ended up back there anyway. So we'll get to that. But so that's how I got sort of close to the oyster and waterman community. I grew up in it, have a lot of respect for them. As you know, I moved around. I worked for big corporate. I left my country life behind because when you grow up in the country life, all you want to do is get the hell out of country life because there's got to be something better out there. And then, of course, you get out there and you find out there's nothing better than country life and you come running right back. But about 30 years later, I came back. So, I went around, I built lots of businesses. I did international, billion-dollar startups. You guys heard all that, right? So, in 2019, I moved back to Virginia. As I said, you can take the girl out of the country, but you can't take the country out of a girl. And the Chesapeake called me home. And so I moved back. And this was right before COVID happened. And COVID happened, and we went into lockdown. Um, and my community, when I moved back to Virginia, I moved back, not back to where I came from, but back to another community that had a lot of watermen, a lot of association with the seafood industry in Virginia. My community was struggling because they had nowhere to sell their oysters. All the restaurants were closed. And these are generations of people who fourth, fifth, sixth generation watermen. This is how they provide for their families by oystering and crabbing and things like that. This is their profession, their career. Many of them are extremely successful, multi-million dollar businesses. Some of the businesses here in Virginia are the biggest growers on the East Coast. So wide variety of businesses, but all of them were hurting when the restaurants closed down because that's predominantly where their oysters go. And so they didn't have anywhere to sell. And this community, I politely call them Luddites. They're not real tech advanced. They're not really interested in sitting around on computers. They're hardworking people. They're outdoorsy. They're not super tech savvy. So not many of them had any websites. They didn't know anything about e-commerce, selling direct to consumer. So I got involved. Let me put it this way. I involved myself. I did not get involved. There was no movement. I made a movement. So I started making phone calls. I got a hold of Mike Hutt, the head of Marine Resources at Virginia, and I just started fucking making phone calls until I got a hold of somebody who listened. And it was Mike Hutt finally listened. And he said, I can't get off the damn phone. These watermen are calling me all day long, asking me how selling online, and I don't know a damn thing about it. And I was like, well, you know what? I do. and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it for free because these people need help. And I did not want cost to be a barrier to helping them. I had just come from Amazon.com, Nordstrom.com, and 7 years of building startups and supply chains with my own company. No, I had knowledge and I was going to give it to them. And I did. And I did webinars. I ended up partnering with VIMS, Virginia Institute of Marine Science, and College of William and Mary to provide education and coaching and inspiration and just anything I could do to get people to sell online, sell your oysters, make some money. And the great thing about this, I probably have worked with 24, a little over 20 different oyster businesses in Virginia alone. And helped them craft their business to some level, whether it was a 1 hour conversation to provide some insight, all the way to helping them design and build their websites and get their businesses off the ground. And I'm here to tell you, we got a couple $1 million businesses out there now selling oysters online. Yes, yes, yes. But I got involved with my community because they needed help. And I never charged them during the COVID time. Eventually, I did get hired on with some other oyster companies to help them. But during this, when I was working with VIMS and College of William and Mary, all of the support for them was free to help them build their businesses. So that is how I got re-engaged with the oyster community here in Virginia about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Well, turns out that there's another oyster company who needs help. And this one's a big one. And this one's an old one. And it's been around forever. And they have zero digital presence. They have zero knowledge on e-commerce, marketing, any of that stuff. They are truly an old school Virginia seafood business. And I'm going to be working with them. And I am super fucking excited about it because we are going to be bringing a product to the market that is not widely available to the public, but is ubiquitous. Omnipresent in omnipresent. That was, let's not talk about that. Omnipresent in the restaurant industry. So I am super jazzed to partner with these people. And I can't believe I'm back in the oyster business again because it's wild to me that this is where I came from. And, people say you do full circles in life, right? And I hope this doesn't mean that I'm done with my circle. But it's wild to me that I grew up in this community. My first job offer out of college was shucking oysters. I've been all over the world, led one of the biggest companies in the world, led all of their global expansion, gone on to Nordstrom to be a huge change leader. We haven't gotten it in the Nordstrom stuff, guys. We still got ways to go on what we've been talking about. Do all of this huge stuff to come back and work in oysters again. So I'm super excited about it. And what I'm excited about is I'm going to start as part of it. Once it starts kicking off, I'm going to bring this to the podcast and I'm going to help you, I'm going to bring you behind the scenes on what does it look like to build an e-commerce startup from scratch for a 100-year-old plus company. Yeah, no shit, right? This is going to be cool as established organization. We're just taking them to the next level and it is going to be amazing. And I am super excited about it. And I'm going to start the story now because there's something really important in how this happened. So as I mentioned, I'm not going to say who the company is yet because we're going to get all into that and we're going to have a website and we're going to get there. But this company has been around for a long time and one of the biggest players in the oyster industry, probably on the East Coast for sure, potentially in the whole country. I don't know that for sure. Definitely on the East Coast. Has never wanted to get into the e-commerce business, has known about me, has known about my work. I'm associated with this company on another level, on a personal level. But they have always been like, no, that's not our game. It's not our game. It's not our game. So a couple weeks ago, I get a phone call that says, I need to talk. We need to talk. I've been told we need to talk. Which means we're in big trouble and we need to talk. And I've kind of been waiting for this phone call for a couple of years now. So I was ready. And I go and talk to the company and they said, "Hey, we've gotten ourselves together and we don't want to do e-commerce, Kim. We know that's your thing. We don't want to do that, but we want to have a website. We need to have for our wholesale business and we just need to have a website." And I said, "You know what? I agree with you. You do need to have a website and you do need more profits for your wholesale business. And I can definitely do that for you." And we talked a little bit about what they're trying to do. And towards the end of the conversation, I said, "Hey, but before you close the door on this direct to consumer business, let me talk about it. Let's talk about a couple things here. I got a couple thoughts I want to share with you before you shut the door on this." And they're like, "Well, we've talked about it and we don't really think it's for us." I'm like, I understand that. I get it. But I think there's an opportunity here. I think there's a market for your product. And they're like, "Well, yeah, but we would have to do, and we don't do this and we don't do this and we don't have that and we don't have this and we don't have what those other companies that you've been working with, we don't have what they have. We don't do that. We don't do aquaculture. We don't do that. It's not our business. Our business is frozen. That's okay. We don't need all that. We are going to start with what you have. And that is what this podcast is about. Starting with what you have." These guys were so focused on what they didn't have and what they believed they would have to have in order to be successful that they couldn't see what they did have. And what they have is an amazing product that nobody else is really selling or marketing. Their product is way superior to anybody else's because they pretty much invented the product and the way to make the product. And they've been selling a shit ton of it to restaurants and distributors and and grocery stores and big commercial chains all over the country for decades. All of this, and anybody out there who's in direct to consumer e-commerce and this is a frozen food product, anybody who's out there who's in this industry, I know you're salivating right now because you're like, "What? This is a gold mine." It is a gold mine. It is a gold mine. But all they could see is we don't have what all those other guys have, and we're not selling what all those other guys are selling, and they're successful, and we're not going to be able to be successful because we don't have all that. But let me tell you what you do have. You have a superior product that we know people love because it's been around for a long time. Yep. You got warehouse space. You got dry ice, machine, a dry machine. Do you know what those cost? Yeah. And you got a product that people are already buying. We don't need anything else. We just need a website and some boxes and a shipping contract. Yeah. We don't need any of that. And that is the conversation I had. There is market for your product. People are not stepping in this direct to consumer product market for your particular product. I don't know why, but you actually make it in bulk. You practically invented it. You don't need anything else. We're going to start with what you have available at your plant right now. Besides the boxes, we're going to have to order some boxes and we got to do some branding because 100-year-old oyster company, they're not real focused on brand. That's okay. I got it. We're going to start with what you have. We're not going to go try to buy or grow or do anything else. We're going to start with what you have right now. What do you have right now? That's what we're going to do. And that conversation, that 6 minutes of there's market, you have it, you have the product, and we can do it with what you have, changed everything. That conversation shifted a 100-year-old plus mindset. Yeah, I wa I couldn't believe it myself. I'm gonna be honest, like, I walked out of there hopeful because I said, "If these guys are gonna do it, I'm gonna do it with them. I'm in. I'm gonna do it." But I was unsure if they would really do it, and I didn't hard pitch them. I said, "Hey, y'all think about this and make sure it's what you wanna do. And here's how much it's gonna cost, and here's how long it's probably gonna take, and here's some things we don't wanna do. But I want you to think about it. Make sure this is what you really believe in and that you want this to be part of your brand. This is part of you. Make sure that's what you want to do. Because I don't want to run this up to a $5 million a year business and then y'all back out." And they said, no. That 6-minute conversation changed 100 years of thinking because we could do it with what they have. All we have to do is build a website. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We're not buying new product. We're not sourcing something different. We're not flipping the whole company upside down. And most of all, and most important, we're not waiting. I did a podcast a couple days ago with Andrew on the Amazon Global. That's not out yet. You guys might have heard a little bit of it by the time this podcast comes out. I'm not sure. The timing, you guys know I'm just lost in space. It wasn't for a GPS. But Andrew on this podcast talked about if what you put out there doesn't fail, you probably waited too long. And I thought that was the most brilliant thing I've heard in ever because it's true. If what you put out in the world didn't fail at some level, I'm not talking like full on failure, but wasn't quite perfect. You probably waited too long. Yeah. If you're out there and you are thinking about starting a direct to consumer business, starting anything, start with what you have. You have so much available to you already. We get so wrapped up in focusing on what we would have to be successful and paralyzing ourselves from moving forward with anything because we believe that. Start with what you have. That 6-minute conversation versus 100 years. Start with what you have. Start here and go and grow. Then we'll figure out what else we can do. What else can we sell? What else can make money? What else we got available sitting around? Start with what you have. If you're out there, you're thinking about that, you want to do something, but you're like, look, I only got 3 products, do it. Start with what you have and then build. You also make more money and waste less money that way. Just my personal opinion. Actually, that's not my personal opinion. That is fact from many years of building startups. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Big news on the horizon for me. I'm not going anywhere, by the way. Don't panic. I'm gonna still podcast, still doing keynote, but I'm gonna be building an oyster business again. I'm pretty fucking excited about it. And I'm pretty fucking excited about the company I'm gonna do it with. And I'm really excited about the product. Really fucking really excited. And I'm gonna do a podcast about it. I think it's gonna be weekly. I think I'm gonna call it On the Half Shell. And I'm going to talk you guys through building this business and talk about building the e-commerce business. Now, obviously, there's things I can't tell you because there's proprietary information, but I can tell you a lot of the basics and I can bring you along for the ride. And I think it's going to be kind of cool. And I'm super excited. So excited to share this with all of you. And again, the whole point of this conversation and the beauty of what happened last week. Start with what you have. Just start with what you got already and see what you can do. You got it. I got you, babe. All right, my Moodies. We'll chat soon.